Homage to fundamental teacher Buddha Shakyamuni, homage to wisdom, warrior, Manjushri, homage to all lineage benevolent masters. The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered even in a million eons. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize Tathagata's true meaning. In order to liberate all sentient beings from samsara, generate supreme bodhicitta. Now we will teach the four immeasurables from the words of my perfect teacher. Among the four immeasurables, we have already taught boundless equanimity and boundless loving kindness. These two immeasurable hearts have been completed. Starting today, we will teach the third one, boundless compassion. Before teaching the main text, I ask everyone to pay attention to two things. The first thing is that when listening to the teachings, everyone must. Whether you are intellectuals or ordinary practitioners, everyone should listen with complete focus and concentrated attention. Because no matter what kind of teaching it is, if your mind is scattered, you probably won't gain much benefit. In the first volume, we taught the proper way to listen to Dharma. In the first volume of the Preliminary Practices Commentary, we taught the proper way to listen to Dharma. I think the basic principles of listening to Dharma, except for some practitioners who joined later, most people should be familiar with them. If you don't listen carefully, it's like listening to a story. Listening to a story is usually quite simple, but when you listen to a story, if you don't listen carefully to the opening passage or a key plot point, then you won't know what's being discussed later and won't generate any interest at all. Similarly, for any teaching session, everyone should still listen attentively. The content of the preliminary practices appears quite simple, but it truly contains the essence of Patrul Rinpoche's wisdom. If we study it carefully and sincerely, it will definitely be meaningful. Sometimes I feel that what I teach is just nonsensical rambling. Indeed, sometimes I speak very poorly, but I also try my best, based on the teachings of the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and past masters. Combined with my own little understanding and realization, I integrate these together and offer them to everyone. During this process, everyone must. Those listening to teachings at the Academy have generally been very serious about the proper way to listen to Dharma, so I think there shouldn't be major problems. But recently, some people listening through the internet talk while listening, eat while listening, or do other things. It would be better not to listen to such teachings at all. If you want to listen, at least set aside 1 or 2 hours. Take this matter seriously, just as seriously as listening to the Dharma. Actually, when we study together these Vajra words of past masters, it's very possible that unexpected realizations will arise in our mind stream, so I hope everyone, whether to listen or not, we don't request or require anyone, it's all voluntary. Everyone listening here is doing so voluntarily, there are no requirements, but if you're willing to listen, it's best to listen earnestly and carefully. This way, I think you'll develop very good habits for the future. Some people, judging from their expressions, perhaps have been listening for quite a long time. They've become Dharma veterans or old-timers and seem to have no feelings about it. Actually, when someone like me teaches, you might not feel anything, but truly the preliminary practices and any other Vajra words of past great masters, it's impossible to have no feelings about them. It's just that our minds cannot focus. If the mind is very focused, every single sentence can bring you infinite benefit. So from every teaching session, you should gain some new knowledge. Or repeatedly strengthen in your mind stream the principles you understood before, or your realization should progress steadily. You should achieve such goals. Everyone should listen to the teachings earnestly. That's one thing. Second, I've often requested before that everyone, after listening to the teachings, try your best not to break the transmission unless there are special circumstances. An unbroken transmission is the best method, because now it's quite convenient. Everyone can receive teachings through various means. If there are particularly special circumstances, then we probably have rebroadcasts on our online Dharma audio channel. If there are rebroadcasts available, you can listen to them yourself. Also, regarding the recitations before and after class, during this period, I hope everyone will use prayer wheels, because the beginning is basically over 20 minutes. If you use a prayer wheel, the merit is inconceivable. Afterwards, when we recite the King of Aspiration prayers and the Guru Yoga, that's also about 10 more minutes. Many of us, when using prayer wheels regularly, some use them long term, others don't have this habit. So during this period, whether you're at the academy listening to teachings in person or later receiving courses through DVDs, or now listening to teachings through the internet and other convenient methods, if you have a prayer wheel, don't keep it stored away in a box. Using it won't wear it out. Don't be so stingy. Some people, after getting a prayer wheel, never use it because they're afraid of wearing it out. So I especially hope that many people in big cities, regarding their practice, sometimes in worldly matters they still have rich experience. They should have various skillful methods in different aspects. But regarding supramundane dharma, truly this ability is very meager and weak. Therefore, when we only have 1 or 2 hours in a day or two to utilize the Buddha Dharma, you'd better calm your mind. Before this, it's best to finish dealing with all the miscellaneous matters. This hour and a bit, close to 2 hours, is actually the time for one meal in big cities. Eating one meal definitely cannot be completed within 2 hours, I know. Drink a little, eat a little, drink a little more. Always in restaurants, it's 3 to 4 hours. Plus, going to the restaurant takes 1 to 2 hours. Traffic jams in between and traffic jams when returning. For one meal, sometimes it takes 6 to 7 hours. Rather than that, for listening to one teaching session, you'd better handle trivial matters in advance. Then during this time, try your best to listen properly according to the Dharma, especially regarding prayer wheels. I hope you won't use prayer wheels during the teaching. Alright, now we'll officially begin the teaching. What are we teaching today? The preliminary practices, right? I'm a bit confused. What are you doing? Hurry up, isn't being quick good? Now we begin teaching the third practice, cultivating boundless compassion. When cultivating boundless compassion, first we teach the method of meditation. Visualize a being who is oppressed by intense suffering, hoping they will be free from suffering. Actually, the difference between compassion and loving kindness must be clearly understood. Great compassion must have, as its object focus, a sentient being who is experiencing suffering. You visualize, may this being experiencing suffering quickly attain true happiness. This is the essence of compassion, as also taught in the treatise on the great perfection of wisdom. Actually, compassion, everyone here should understand, is extremely important in Buddhism. If we lack compassion in our mind stream, we cannot speak of the realization of Mahayana Buddhism at all. It should be in the Sutra of the Deliberation on the Dharma that it says, as practitioners of Mahayana Buddhism, we don't need to practice many dharmas. Practicing just one dharma is sufficient. What is this one dharma? It is great compassion. Great compassion is like the sun illuminating the entire world. Great compassion illuminates all dharmas. With great compassion, any other dharma can be easily accomplished. If we lack sufficient compassion for sentient beings in our mind stream, whether you practice Dzogchen, Bodhicitta, or any other dharma, whether Chan practices, Pure Land practices, or any dharma, you definitely cannot accomplish them. Why? Because all these dharmas are indivisible from Buddha's wisdom. They are particularly high realizations. Such realizations should have great compassion as their foundation. All supreme Buddha dharmas have compassion as their root. This is taught in the commentary on Bodhicitta. All the most profound dharmas, whether from Tantra or Sutrayana, all dharmas, actually can only be established on the foundation and basis of great compassion. Therefore, we must first know that great compassion is truly very important. To show compassion for sentient beings is to have enlightenment in one's hands. If one has compassion, enlightenment is in their hands. This should be taught in the Sutra of the Tathagata's inconceivable state. So I think, with great compassion as a prerequisite, we can truly practice all great dharmas. So how should great compassion be cultivated? How should we practice it? Below, a specific practice method is taught to us. The sutras also teach it this way. Visualize a criminal imprisoned and about to be executed, or animals whose lives hang in the balance before a butcher, a being suffering intense pain as the object of our compassion. Then generate the thought that this being is your own mother or your own child. When we cultivate great compassion, it's best to start with one being otherwise. If you visualize all beings being free from suffering and finding happiness, opening your eyes wide or closing your eyes, all sentient beings would actually be like universals taught in logic. Universals pervade everything, just like when we say humans. Are they Han Chinese, Tibetans, or Mongolians? What kind of people? There's no specific idea at all. This is called scattered practice, pervasive practice, not very practical. Therefore, when we meditate, it's best to, for example, being imprisoned in jail, or a being truly about to be killed in front of a butcher, visualize such beings, or beings you've personally seen. Then consider them as your closest parents or your own children. The specific practice is, for example, visualizing a prisoner ordered by the king to be taken to the execution ground, or a sheep bound by a butcher. At that time, let go of thinking, this is some other being. Let go of thoughts like it's a prisoner, or it's a sheep, or it's such and such being. Let go of such thoughts. How should you think? If this being were myself, what would I do? Think this way. This is very important. Sometimes we truly see some prisoners. Now, when some prisoners are taken to execution grounds, first the death sentence is announced, then many armed police and court police put them in prisoner transport vehicles. Then they're taken to the execution ground to begin the shooting. Some, before even reaching there, can no longer stand up. When I was studying, I saw some prisoners. When I saw their faces, truly everything had been lost. Of course, for them, in just 1 or 2 hours, it had become the end of the world. The world they saw was the final scene. Truly, when people reach the point of utmost despair and misery, their faces are extremely sorrowful. I saw on television that day when the earthquake occurred in Japan. When a tsunami nearly 10 meters high came surging forward, some people, seeing the tsunami and earthquake, their entire faces had become very pale, with a feeling of helplessness. At that time, they didn't know what to do. If they had faith, they would pray. Without faith, they could only be in a state of complete helplessness. We know that when people encounter such ultimate crises, they experience such terror and suffering. Other beings are just somewhat slower in their movements. Actually, when they face being killed, they have the same feelings, the same suffering, especially when the butcher's knife truly touches their body. It's extremely painful. At that time, when we want to meditate on compassion, we must take a specific example for our practice, or you personally go to slaughterhouses, or when you encounter beings who are truly suffering, probably compassion will naturally arise in your heart. Originally, we sentient beings possess the potential for compassion and wisdom. If we didn't have these seeds, there would probably be no way to awaken them. But every person definitely has this at this time. You receive education in Mahayana Buddhism. You know that great compassion is very important on the journey to Buddhahood. At the same time, when you have opportunities to encounter these pitiful beings, your mindset will definitely be completely different from before. Sometimes when we see particularly pitiful beings in hospitals, it seems tears have already flowed down without our knowing it. Or when you see some particularly pitiful beings, following the influence of the environment, your mind immediately undergoes great changes. This is very necessary. At that time, you truly are. So sometimes we should personally go to such scenes ourselves. This might be very good. I've seen a lay practitioner from Singapore named Shuja Shi, 114 years old this year and hasn't passed away yet. She came to Buddhism quite late. Before she studied other religions, one of her sayings goes, "The direction of my life is to go wherever there are poor people." Her life philosophy is, "I love my fellow beings. The entire universe is my home." I think I remember such words. Actually, people who truly have loving hearts are not just her. Many people consider her realization very high, but those educated in Mahayana Buddhism, initially perhaps in your mind stream, you truly have very serious hatred and dissatisfaction toward individual beings. But gradually, under the influence of Mahayana education, gradually in your mind stream, you will generate particularly strong compassion for every being. This compassion will not leave you throughout your lifetime and life after life. So actually, our practice can always be carried out in daily life. If it were myself, what would I do? Think this way. Indeed, When I saw the television that day, if I had been present at the scene, when the tsunami occurred, what would I do? I thought to myself at that time, would I pray to the Buddha? Could I remember to? It's hard to say. Sometimes even Buddhists become numb at critical moments. At such times, truly people are all very helpless and pitiful. When I see the suffering of these beings, I find it very painful. Each of us should practice this way in our daily life as well. Focus your mind and think, that suffering being over there is myself. What should I do now? Whether it's a prisoner being sentenced or an animal being killed, think this way. Nowhere to escape, nowhere to hide, without refuge or protection, unable to slip away or fly. By my own strength or force, I cannot resist. In this instant, I must leave all appearances of this life, even abandoning my cherished and protected body, and step onto the path of the next life. In such a tragic situation, what should I do? You should think carefully about this yourself. These are all methods for cultivating great compassion. Visualize such suffering falling upon yourself and train your mind. You must begin to let such suffering fall upon your own body. What should I do if I truly encountered such suffering now? Practice this repeatedly. In the beginning, since our minds usually don't think about this, it's probably a bit difficult since we basically never consider it. But when you reach a certain point and see pitiful beings, naturally your heart will generate the feeling, oh, how pitiful. I've seen some Buddhists who have never cultivated great compassion, although they constantly say, I've realized emptiness. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form, recognizing the nature of mind, etc. But when beings are being slaughtered right in front of them, their expression doesn't change at all. They have no feeling whatsoever. In such cases, the realization you've claimed to achieve. Might it perhaps contradict the ideals of Mahayana Buddhism? True Mahayana Buddhism, as taught in the Flower Ornament Sutra, not seeking happiness for oneself, but wishing only to protect all sentient beings. Generating great compassion in this way, one swiftly enters the ground of non-obstruction. This differs slightly from some of the scriptural citations we used before true Mahayana. Buddhists do not seek happiness for themselves. All their words and deeds, all their thoughts and contemplations are entirely for protecting sentient beings. If we truly can generate or develop such compassion, then in a very short time you will enter the unobstructed fruition of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, or the highest realizations. This will not be difficult. If you don't have such compassion, it's like a wall without a foundation. If there's no foundation for the wall, where would the beautiful patterns on the wall come from? It would be quite difficult. So as Mahayana practitioners, I think great compassionate bodhicitta is indeed particularly important. If one has such a great compassionate bodhicitta, perhaps in this very life, one should also obtain many worldly happinesses in future lives, life after life, never separated from altruistic bodhicitta. Actually, great compassionate bodhicitta is established upon a kind and especially virtuous mental attitude. If this is the case, many happinesses will also appear in this very life. I remember it said that in the 9th year of the Republic, a truly authentic story appeared. In a certain place, they were preparing to hold a wedding ceremony. At this time, a deer in the mountains was being chased by hunters. Finally, it reached the bride's room. The bride was a person with great virtue and hid it. After hiding it, the hunters later demanded that it must be brought out. She felt it was very pitiful and kept refusing, preparing to buy it. They said it would cost $20 silver. At that time, $20 silver was probably quite a lot. Later, when the bride was preparing to pay, many people, including her father-in-law and mother-in-law, opposed it. Their wedding itself probably only cost $15 silver. If you were to pay so much, they thought her behavior was very foolish. But after haggling, the hunters also agreed to $15 silver. Then the hunters departed. After several years, their family had a child about 2 or 3 years old. At that time, one day this deer had probably grown larger than before. It suddenly came and put this child on a chair. It placed the child between its antlers, circled the crowd 3 times, and began running outward. At this time, all the people in their household, big and small, chased after it. When they had chased for some distance, they heard a loud boom behind them. As a result, the entire mountain collapsed, and all the people in the village were destroyed. Only their family escaped. At that time, the deer put the child on the ground and then left. At this time, they realized that if one has a kind heart, even worldly animals have hearts of gratitude. These are not legends nor mythology. They are truly recorded in very reliable historical books. So now, sometimes people are particularly blind, including the power and blessings of kind hearts and compassion. People know nothing about them. People every day only look at money, only looking at immediate worldly affairs to spend their lives. Actually, it's not like this. Apart from the present life we understand through eyes, ears, nose and tongue, there are many mysterious principles, and these mysterious principles, most people, those without faith, those without interest in this area, basically haven't studied them at all, and consequently many non-virtuous negative actions often occur in our behavior. So we must think about the function and power of bodhicitta, or seeing a sheep being taken to a slaughterhouse. Visualize. If this sheep were my birth mother, what would I do? Think this way. When we see any, not only because Patrul Rinpoche spoke based on Tibetan customs of life, mentioning sheep, cattle, and so forth, when we usually see when you go to restaurants. In restaurants there are fish, rabbits, dogs, they slaughter them every day. When slaughtering, you should think, oh, the dog in this cage. If it were my mother being slaughtered like this today, what would I do? In actual practice, with closed eyes, you should think this way. Let go of the thought that it's a sheep, and from the heart, visualize that it is your own birth mother. Then continue to visualize further. If my old mother has not the slightest fault, yet is being innocently killed by others like this, what should I do now? Truly my mother is being slaughtered by them today for no reason. What do I do now? How much suffering must my old mother be experiencing? Visualize this sincerely. When you urgently hope that your old mother will immediately escape the suffering of being slaughtered by the butcher, or when loving compassion arises uncontrollably, continue visualizing this way. Oh, this being now experiencing suffering is not my mother in this life. Gradually switch over. Earlier, you kept thinking it was truly your mother. Later, oh, my true mother experiencing such suffering, such feelings. Then you feel especially distressed in your heart, because we generally have certain feelings for our birth parents. Then while visualizing, think this way. After a certain time, oh, actually this isn't my mother, but actually it's no different from my mother. Throughout countless lives, these beings have all been my parents. Although it's not my mother in this life, it definitely was my parent in past lives. Buddha also said in the Sutra of the Great Assembly, there is not a single being who has not been my parent. Actually, according to many teachings of the Kadampa school for investigation, there are many doctrinal reasonings for verification. When being fathers and mothers, they were completely like present parents, lovingly raising me. Their great kindness is no different from present parents. How pitiful must these parents be, suffering under such intense pain and oppression. Our greatest difficulty now is, this pitiful being has been my parent, but we still cannot generate the thought that there's no difference from our parents in this life. We still cannot generate such thoughts. This is because we haven't meditated for a long time. If you meditate for a long time, this compassion will naturally arise. I see that among us, whether lay practitioners or monastics. There are truly those with excellent foundations, because some realizations arise naturally. When seeing pitiful beings, that compassion is particularly strong. This is very important. From their expressions and many behaviors, it can also be naturally observed. Actually, if such compassion truly arises in one's mind stream, then this is the true essence of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, as it says in the King of Aspiration prayers. All Buddhas and Tathagatas have great compassion as their essence. All Buddhas and Tathagatas actually have great compassion as their essence. They have nothing else. We humans have anger, greed, delusion. We have the essence of many mental states, but Buddhas and Tathagatas don't have these. What is the sole specialty of Buddhas and Tathagatas? Extremely intense great compassion among worldly ordinary people or any worldly person. If their mind stream has particularly intense great compassion, they can also be called emanations of Buddhas, or emanations of Bodhisattvas. Truly, great compassion is particularly important in our practice. Without great compassion, many other realizations cannot be spoken of, so in daily life, harming sentient beings. These are not the actions of practitioners. We must pay attention to such behaviors. If they could instantly escape such suffering at this very moment, how wonderful that would be. Continue meditating until fierce compassion arises, until you can't hold back tears streaming down. Keep flowing tears in the beginning. We definitely cannot do this. As you keep practicing, finally, after a long time, when you see any pitiful being, your tears will be unstoppable and will definitely flow. Just like our precious Guru and many of our Dharma friends. When they see some compassionate, pitiful beings, they can't even eat their meals and will definitely feel great sadness. This shows that great compassion has truly arisen in their mind stream. When you have generated true great compassion for them, continue visualizing. Experiencing such suffering is also the result of past negative actions. Those people who are now committing wrongdoings will definitely experience such suffering in future lives too. How pitiful. Think this way. Actually, those currently being slaughtered, whether sheep, fish, or any such beings, actually, in the past, they truly were humans becoming fish, fish becoming humans, repeatedly taking rebirth, continuously repaying grievances. In the past, they definitely harmed other beings. In this life, they have fallen into others' hands. Actually, the present butchers are even more pitiful. Because these beings have already repaid part of their debt with their lives. They can already rest. They've paid back part of it. But these butchers, these people who are killing, are even more pitiful. We should also generate compassion for them. When we often practice animal liberation, the yaks are also very pitiful. Every time we practice animal liberation in Tibetan areas, after releasing the yaks, we have these butchers vow not to kill for one day. For them not to kill, long term would be very difficult. Not killing for one day is like the story of Shrona from before. Perhaps they might temporarily gain a little benefit. We can only do this much, otherwise there might be no other way. So we should also cultivate compassion for them. Thus, taking people who are creating the causes of suffering, such as killing, as objects for cultivating compassion, then meditate on suffering beings who have fallen into hell, hungry ghost, and animal realms. Focus your mind on them as yourself or as your own birth parents. Strive diligently in this meditation. Just now we meditated on individual pitiful beings. After your practice has expanded its scope somewhat. Of course, in our human world there are many beings creating negative actions, beings experiencing the results of creating negative actions, countless beings in hell suffering from blazing heat and freezing cold, countless beings in the hungry ghost realm experiencing the suffering of hunger in our present human world or other realms. There are also countless ignorant animals being driven by others and devouring each other. These are also very pitiful. With closed eyes, think, how pitiful are all beings of the three lower realms. May they quickly truly attain the fruit of happiness. Meditate this way. Finally, meditate that wherever space extends is filled with beings, wherever beings extend is filled with negative actions and suffering. How pitiful are these beings who only create negative actions and only experience suffering. We know that throughout the boundless entire world there are countless beings, and these countless beings all have karma, afflictions, and suffering, constantly pervading them. They too are very pitiful. So sometimes when we see beings on the surface, some may appear fortunate, fulfilled, and happy, but actually there's no happiness. All are bound tightly by the shackles of karma and afflictions, very painful. Therefore we must always think, why did many great masters of the Kadampa school in the past never smile their whole lives or cover their heads with shawls and cry every day? This should be taught later. Did I teach it ahead of time? How pitiful. If all these beings could be freed from all karma, afflictions, suffering, and their habitual tendencies in the 6 realms and attain permanent happiness and perfect enlightenment, how wonderful that would be. We should think this way about all beings in the 6 realms, whether superior, middling, or inferior, or my relatives, hated enemies, or neutral ones. all must be included in meditation. The Yogacara Bhumi Sastra also teaches this way. So-called compassion actually means equally visualizing the removal of all suffering. For these three types of beings, relatives, enemies, and neutral ones, such a mental attitude is called compassion. So we should think of all beings throughout boundless space. Each being has their own different karmic experiences, including those of us here listening to teachings. Everyone has their own afflictions and sufferings. Actually, all these personal afflictions and sufferings are all foolish people binding themselves with their own discriminating thoughts, but others don't know this. Therefore, if we have compassion, let's not talk about others. Those of us present here listening to teachings right now definitely have much suffering. Let's not talk about the long term. Perhaps just in this past month, how much physical and psychological suffering has arisen in each person's mind? Much physical suffering. You basically know when you go to hospitals. You don't know if you don't go to hospitals, but when you go, thousands and thousands of people come and go. Wow, it seems like everyone in the world has fallen ill, but hospitals can only treat physical ailments. There are even more people with psychological illnesses, but psychological hospitals so far basically don't exist. Should say they don't exist. I hear there are some psychological counseling experts, but these experts themselves are also in unbearable suffering. Sometimes they wipe their tears while answering others' questions. I would suggest that for general psychological ailments, if you want true healing, the vast spiritual resources of religions are still effective. Among these, the best and most wonderful should be the mind-training methods in Buddhism, including, for example, chapters 7 and 8 of The Way of the Bodhisattva, truly understanding such principles. Especially after understanding the principles of emptiness in chapter 9 of The Way of the Bodhisattva, many people's minds have truly been fundamentally resolved. Why do people now have such favorable feelings toward Buddhism? Actually, many intellectuals and many people have truly benefited from it. I've encountered countless people. They are all very grateful to the Buddha Dharma. Why are they grateful? Because wealth, status, or any worldly thing cannot satisfy or resolve these great problems of the mind. Through Buddha Dharma, they have completely understood. After understanding, although as ordinary people, there may still be some karma, afflictions and suffering in their mind stream, but in general they basically know this direction. So, I think truly, whether we generate compassion for beings or generate Buddhist concepts in our own mind stream, it's a very joyful thing. But around us there are countless beings who don't have such realizations, so we must always generate compassion for them. Actually, generating compassion. Those without merit may not be able to arise it. Among all sentient beings, if one arises compassion, this should be taught in the Mahaparinirvana Sutra. Among all sentient beings, if one arises compassion, this is called noble lineage, obtaining immeasurable merit. If one can truly generate great loving kindness and compassion toward beings, especially great compassion. Actually, ordinary people may not be able to generate it in their mind stream. Those who have truly awakened the bodhisattva nature can generate it. Then the merit and blessings they obtain are immeasurable, generating one moment of compassion for beings. The merit from this is truly inconceivable. So we often teach that in practicing Mahayana Buddha Dharma, meditating on great compassion and emptiness has tremendous merit. Therefore, everyone here, while practicing the preliminaries, when you wake up in the morning, before sleeping at night, or when you have time during the day, let your mind rest a bit and meditate on the suffering of beings. Try your best to generate even a moment of compassion for them. In this way, the merit is indeed very great. If you generate compassion for beings long term, then you've already become a bodhisattva, always in all your actions, constantly thinking of beings, never thinking of yourself. Then you are a bodhisattva. What else is there to being a bodhisattva besides this? So-called bodhisattvas don't need to fly around in the sky or swim around in the ocean. If that were the case, all athletes would become bodhisattvas. Many swimming athletes swim even faster than fish. So generating compassion in our mind stream now is particularly difficult. When repeatedly and sincerely meditating on compassion this way, initially take any one being as your object of meditation. Meditate solely on them, then gradually expand the scope of your practice until finally you meditate universally on all beings. If you don't meditate step by step like this, but instead practice carelessly and superficially, you cannot possibly accomplish it properly. Venerable Longchenpa in The Great Chariot, a commentary on finding rest in the nature of the mind, has explained this very clearly. At the beginning, you must find one or two particularly pitiful beings, or when you see some beings suffering disasters, some orphans, some particularly pitiful people. Some people, when they see reports on television or news in newspapers, as soon as they see it, tears start flowing while reading the newspaper. But after a while, the tears dry up and the compassion in their heart also flies away and disappears. Actually, true Mahayana practitioners continuously nurture such compassion. We see in Buddha's extensive biographies that during the causal stage, in every lifetime, the focus was on increasing compassion. So as Mahayana Buddhists, this is indeed very important. Otherwise, in some individual Dharma centers nowadays, it's truly, perhaps we generate wrong views, or what some people, judging from their behavior, seem not to value great compassion in their mind stream, including some who consider themselves to have high realizations as Buddhists. They don't care at all about compassion for beings. In this case, how can we speak of Mahayana Buddhism? Everyone must meditate well from this perspective. Below, the author teaches that when cultivating great compassion in daily life, start from those around you. 2 days ago, when we taught loving kindness, we also started from those around us. Originally, you might be a great bodhisattva who has cultivated great compassion very well. A true bodhisattva makes no distinctions. But if you view everyone you encounter as enemies or bad people, even if you travel together for 5 or 6 days and end up fighting with everyone, are there such bodhisattvas? Basically, there aren't any. The biographies of Manjushri and Avalokiteshvara don't mention that wherever they go, they argue with people nearby, every day being incompatible. It's not like this, so a bodhisattva's behavior can also be reflected in their daily life. Therefore, the so-called four immeasurables first start from ourselves, from what we're involved with. We're not living alone on the moon right now. Around us there are so many beings, humans and non-humans, many. So when we interact with people, how should those who have learned Mahayana, great compassion, treat everyone, whether your superiors, leaders, or those in charge? These too should definitely be meditated upon with great compassion. Even toward gurus, they can be objects of great compassion. How pitiful our guru is! His karma is so heavy, his afflictions so deep, every day dedicating merit to him and meditating and regarding some leaders. Our leaders create negative actions every day and so on. You can meditate on superiors, you can meditate on equals, then on lower people. From a human perspective, I think, starting from those around us, we can also cultivate great compassion. Around us, there are also many others. For example, nomads and farmers often encounter cattle, sheep, and other animals. For the rest of us, especially people in big cities, they also often encounter various birds and beasts around them. When you encounter a being, think, oh, this isn't like a stone. It's not as non-Buddhists say, that a flower is the same as a life dash. It's not like this. This is ultimately a life, no different from us humans. Even if you encounter a small insect on the road that's about to be stepped on by others, try every means to rescue it to a safer place. There should be many such behaviors. This is the manifestation of your great compassion. Some of the living customs described here are possibly based on Tibetan life, but this is also necessary. No author can depart from their own tradition. When Shakespeare wrote, much was written according to his customs, but later generations have always praised this greatly. Some people tell me that Patrul Rinpoche's preliminary practices isn't necessary for Han Chinese, right? He keeps talking about riding yaks, riding horses, castrating, nose piercing, Han people might not necessarily know about these things, but I think this is very necessary. On one hand, they need to know the living traditions of another ethnicity. They should understand various aspects. But actually, the lives of these beings we encounter, these beings have no regional or ethnic boundaries. The great compassion and wisdom of our Buddhism aren't limited by any boundaries. Between countries, between regions, or between worldly and supramundane, even future lives, such boundaries don't exist. The essence of compassion from over 2,500 years ago is the same now and will be in the future. But other thoughts and doctrines are not like this. Some theories advocated by wise people hundreds of years ago have long since been completely overthrown, including some concepts we remember from when we were young that were most advocated. Some individual ideologies now have already. Some people died, others haven't died yet. Some people died. What? So Buddha's compassionate thought is completely different. Therefore here, especially when we see cattle, horses, sheep that depend on us in daily life, experiencing suffering or hardship, we should meditate on great compassion. But how do we people actually behave? When cattle and other livestock at our doorstep suffer nose-piercing, castration, hair-plucking, bloodletting while alive, etc., various sufferings like hell. At such times some owners never think that they too have painful sensations. If we carefully observe, we'll know this is caused by the fault of lacking compassion. In Tibetan areas we indeed also have such phenomena. Some people are very cruel. When farmers or nomads use yaks and such animals, they must burn an iron awl and pierce it directly through the nose, then thread particularly coarse rope through it, also castration and pulling out body hair. This existed before, now it might be slightly better. Before, they often extracted much blood from cattle and sheep to drink. After the blood was extracted, they basically couldn't walk and were barely alive. Now there are also many such practices, including in big cities. I hear that cattle and sheep are bled first, including pigs. There are such practices when these things are brought up. We also have many in Tibetan areas. But compared to Han regions, there might be slightly fewer. Before there were some cruel phenomena with butchers. Now needless to say it's even worse. The other day I saw about bear bile nowadays. Large bears, actually they extract bile from their gallbladders many times a day. This way it's particularly painful. Some small and large bears really can't bear it and commit suicide, and every bear for about 10 years undergoes this 3 times daily. Extremely painful. And now, for example, animal experiments. There are many where they can neither die nor live, including what we hear about killing young lambs in Gansu area nowadays. To make the young lamb's wool look good, they inject it with hormones. With these hormones, they can neither die nor live. Basically, for 24 hours their bodies keep shaking, then they slowly die. So people now have countless cruel methods. In some restaurants, I previously wrote in the book, Miserable Worlds, about many cruel things happening nowadays. When convenient, you can read it yourselves. We must generate compassion for sentient beings. Actually, many of our behaviors or things around us should easily generate compassion. Let's think carefully. Suppose it were yourself. Just pulling out one strand of hair now would make you cry, ouch! Feeling that the stabbing pain is truly unbearable. If we were cattle or sheep, having all the hair on our bodies pulled out. When we were young, nomads often had such practices. There was something called a twisting stick used to forcefully pull out all the hair from their bodies, all the coarse hair on the body, and using this coarse hair to make yak hair tents, etc. That bull was completely naked and covered in blood, with every pore dripping blood in pain, constantly emitting low moaning sounds, but the owner, regarding the bull's unbearable suffering, seems to think nothing of it, instead feeling that their own hands. Because when they remove the hair from the bull's body, their own hands might develop blisters and feel very uncomfortable. There are such phenomena too. Moreover, when people ride horses on journeys, they often feel pain in their buttocks and cannot sit straight on the saddle, needing to sit sideways at an angle, probably from sitting too long. Sometimes when we take buses, if we sit all day, by afternoon we really can't sit anymore. There's this feeling. Riding horses is the same, although on the saddle, after a certain time, it's particularly painful. But they never think that the horse beneath also has fatigue and suffering. Instead, when it's exhausted and can barely move, they think this animal has a bad temperament and won't continue forward and generate anger toward it, whipping it harshly, not having even a moment's compassion for it. People are sometimes very pitiful. Without compassion, cruelty is most terrifying. This should be taught in the Sutra of the Great Assembly. By the power of that anger, one enters Avicii hell. Some beings have no compassion and their character is particularly violent and terrifying. When they generate such anger, by the force of anger, such beings will definitely enter Avicii hell in the future, particularly frightening. Some of us now have no compassion when using these beings. I previously read the words of my perfect teacher. Before, I particularly liked riding horses, but after reading the words of my perfect teacher, I made a vow never to ride horses again. Now it seems there are no opportunities to ride horses. For a time, there were such opportunities. Later, indeed, Nagarjuna's treatises also say that monastics generally shouldn't ride horses. It seems to be in the 50 verses of Samanera. Is it the 50 verses of Samanera? Have you memorized the 50 verses of Samanera? Do you have it or not? Nagarjuna said it there. Did he say it or not? Where did he say it? Why aren't you speaking? Especially when sheep are being slaughtered. First, when being caught from the flock, it experiences unexpected terror and fear. When caught from the flock, the initially grabbed parts will bruise under the skin. Then the owner overturns its body to the ground through various methods. At this time, the butcher uses leather rope to tightly bind its 4 legs, then uses thin rope to tightly constrict its mouth. Generally speaking, most nomads in the past killed cattle and sheep. All died by suffocation, cutting off their breathing. This is extremely painful, taking about 5 to 10 minutes, continuously experiencing the unbearable, intense pain of breath dissolution. If the time of death is somewhat delayed, most heavily sinful butchers become furious while angrily saying, "This damn beast still won't die," while desperately kicking and beating it. As soon as that sheep dies, they immediately strip off its skin and remove its organs. Then immediately extract blood from another living bull. At this time that bull is also exhausted and walks unsteadily. The owner takes the dead meat, the sheep that was just killed. Its meat mixes it with the fresh blood and stuffs it into the organs of the previously slaughtered sheep, then begins eating in a grand manner. Such people have truly become Rakshasas, no different. Particularly frightening, I hear Japanese people also particularly love eating fish. Someone told me, she said, "Oh, this earthquake and tsunami might be a warning." She told me this. I didn't say it. She said basically everyone there must eat fish 3 times a day, and many fish are eaten completely alive. They particularly love eating live shrimp and fish. While eating, they keep moving in the mouth, but they think this is delicious. This is an enjoyment. In recent years, they've been eating more and more. This time, they might all feel what life really is, so I think in our Tibetan areas. Before there were indeed such particularly bad aspects, particularly bad situations where some individuals killed. The author has already described them. There's nothing to hide. Not only in Tibetan areas, in any place there are definitely many bad people. Their behavior trampling on other beings' lives is extremely evil and unbearable to witness. So we should often generate true great compassion for them, especially when we practice preliminaries this time. Everyone should repeatedly meditate on the suffering of many beings. We must remember to help them all escape from suffering, especially using my power to liberate them and grant them happiness. If you think this way repeatedly in your heart, then the blessings of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and the blessings of lineage gurus, plus the pure power of your own mind, after various conditions are complete, I believe true and genuine great compassion will arise in our mind stream. Alright, we'll stop here today.
Om ma sadardo